Good morning, members of Parliament and support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, and those following by various media. Welcome to this meeting of the Committee of Justice, number 6 of today, Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. I would like to give a special welcome to the representatives of the You Deserve It Foundation, Ms. Idelene Hayden-Vane, and representative of the Cross Crew Click Foundation, and as well as the Sint Maarten Drag Racing Association as well with us today. We've established a quorum of 7 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I've received notice of absence from the members Bijlani and Duncan. I see we have a notification from MP Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A good morning to yourself, to the Griffier, to the Secretariat, to my fellow colleagues, to the Foundation, to the ones in the Tribune, to everybody else tuned in throughout the various media outlets. Mr. Chairman, last time for a meeting that I gave notice of lateness to and was on the way to, I heard that there was no quorum. Now, quorum is a prerogative of Parliament and plays a key role in our representation of the people, that we do not blindly give quorum for meetings, but protect the people when the Presidium is playing games with their interests. So imagine my surprise, Mr. Chairman, to receive a video that was sent to me before I even arrived back home, in which the House of Parliament was disrespected with ease. For example, Mr. Chairman, the mere fact that there was alluded to that we were receiving a future candidate that talked about people being afraid that, and I quote, we will steal her shine, or we were afraid that she will steal our shine, is exactly the problem with Presidium providing this platform. That this is a priority at the moment for Parliament, knowing that we have multiple meetings with multiple ministers pending and with multiple issues impacting people's lives. The public had to hear a video that claims that members of Parliament do not care, while they were mentioned by name, about how disappointed they were and about how we have no respect, but now we are here entertaining that same foundation. Considering that in that video, this same floor of Parliament was disrespected, why are we sitting here again, Mr. Chairman? Are we aware that the integrity of Parliament is in question by the actions of the same Presidium that put her here today? More to the point, why would we decide to be rubber stamp MPs for a meeting scheduled by her party leader for a personal campaign? Because that is what it is. An obvious campaign stunt on the topic that the official Drag Racing Association of Sint Maarten has already brought to the floor of Parliament multiple times, by their own statements, they are busy working with government on. Some of the very members of the current coalition have been there for these meetings, Mr. Chairman, by the same official Drag Racing Association. And on top of that, I also know many biker boys. I myself have lost a cousin of mine, which you know as well, Mr. Chairman. So all of this is kind of confusing to me as to why we are entertaining this route. But no, we are here to sit down and entertain the notion of a foundation that was incorporated on June 1st, 2023, and they have the solution. Has anybody else invited the Drag Racing Association of Sint Maarten? If this video is an indication, Mr. Chairman, of the kind of representation that we can expect, a volatile outburst that fits right into the type of politician that Sint Maarten has been cursed with for over 40 years, something that is also mentioned in the video, I think that was unwarranted in Parliament. Aside from the unwarranted personal attacks on Member of Parliament, and I quote, by name, just for information's sake to you, Mr. Chairman, it is government that has to regulate what is being requested today, not Parliament. Educate before you postulate on how government and Parliament actually work. That is my advice to everybody, through you, Mr. Chairman. And in spite of all of this, Mr. Chairman, according to the Foundation's own remarks on social media, government has already given their approval. So I'm just curious to hear from the new Foundation what has been approved, what proof is there of approval, in which ministries were involved in this. And that'll be it for me for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Peterson. Next, MP Grisha Heilige-Martin.
A pleasant good afternoon to you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to my fellow colleagues, and good afternoon to Ms. Hayden-Vane, Ms. Richardson, and Mr. Connor of the You Deserve It Foundation. And Mr.? Oh, sorry, You Deserve It sorry? Oh, sorry. Okay, well, Mr. Connor, welcome to the Legislative Hall. Welcome to Parliament. And a pleasant good morning to those listening and viewing online. Mr. Chairman, I just want to state during this notification round for the record that I officially met Ms. Hayden-Vane this morning. I went over, I shook her hand, I told her that I will be signing in for the meeting and that I will be making a statement and notification and that I would like to hear her response from my notification. Mr. Chairman, you are well aware that this opposition, is usually here 15 to 20 minutes before meeting time. And you know me very well, Mr. Chairman. I'm a stickler for time. I'm always on time. I came a few weeks ago with the intention, Mr. Chairman, to sign in, join into the meeting, and listen to the presentation. No questions asked. When I showed up, I noticed it was Miss Hiravain, and I found out some information about Miss Hiravain, and I'm like, you know, I just need to put a few things in perspective for Miss Hiravain on how things work right now, or how things are operating right now in Parliament. Opposition has been hammering over and over and over and over for pending meetings. I have an airport meeting pending 7 months. What about the airport employees? I have a Telem meeting also pending 7 months, never called. It's going to be called tomorrow. I have a justice meeting pending for the forgotten ones, Mr. Chairman. The forgotten ones, Mr. Hiravain. Because yes, I did a research on you. I finally got to know who you are, took my time and get to know you before I introduced myself to you. The forgotten ones. Still pending 5 months to call that meeting. So if I come in here today and these meetings are not called, and the Presidium decides that this is an important meeting, then it is at the prerogative of the Presidium to decide which meeting they want to call. And it is the prerogative of the Presidium to make sure that they have their aid to stand by them to call these meetings. Because when I was in that position, Mr. Chairman, and you know it fairly well, I would call everyone's meeting. I never had a situation like this at hand because I was neutral. I'm here today, Mr. Chairman, because I never wanted to protect no coalition, because that's not the job. The job is not to protect a coalition. The job is to be neutral, to call meetings. That's the job. And if all meetings are called, if Presidium holds their calm accountable to come and answer to the people, then I could understand. And Ms. Hiravain, I'm really apologetic to you that you had to succumb to this, that you had to be a victim to this. I'm sorry for that. But to later on hear from Ms. Hiravain that CALM already approved this solidifies exactly what I thought the first day. Because if CALM already approved it, where are the pertinent ministers here to discuss the approval of this initiative? I want to find out the budget. I want to find out the discussion. Why did Ms. Hiravain didn't go publicly and announce that CALM approved that it's coming? So hopefully Ms. Hiravain could respond to that. But I also have another thing I need to put in perspective, Ms. Hiravain. It's very important. Very important that you know. Very important that you do research. Because this same chair, in 2019 March, didn't give quorum for the credentials of an MP, for the continuity of a slim majority of 8. Put things in perspective, Ms. Hiravain, through you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, I would like to ask Ms. Hiravain for an apology publicly to me. Why? Why am I asking for that? We just met today. But Ms. Hiravain said that I stated that, and she can pinpoint who, that I promised a drag strip. Now, Mr. Chairman, and you know it fairly well, I never campaigned on a drag strip. And it's not to say that I'm against it. Matter of fact, I had an auntie of a drag racer call me and tell me what's going on. And when I explained it to her, what's going on, she understood. But Mr. Chairman, I campaigned predominantly on the injustice within the Kingdom Charter. I campaigned on the democratic deficits. I campaigned on the imbalance of power and the justice change. It's not that I'm against this, but that's what I campaigned for. So I would like Ms. Hiravain to pinpoint the name of the persons that told her that I promised them a drag strip. You don't have to mention them by name. We could do it after the meeting and get to know each other a little more today. Get to know each other a little more. But don't make lewd. I don't appreciate that, Ms. Hiravain, through you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I'd like to leave it. And thank you and look forward to the presentation. And if I have to ask any pertinent questions, I'll do so. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Grisha Heilige Martin. Next, MP Westcott Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good morning to you, a good morning to our support staff, my colleagues, a good morning to our guests here this morning, those in the tribune. Good morning. Mr. Chairman, for this meeting, and there are many notifications that I have, and I will divide them over this meeting as well as meetings to come this week. I want to start out my notifications with expressing a word of thanks to former Prime Minister, Mr. Marcel Gomes, for his service as a member of the Steering Committee of the Trust Fund. I want to thank him for being there from the early days, and because of his and others' insistence, today, many are shining with the projects that have been financed by the Dutch fund. Yes, it's oh my God. Yes, indeed. I said the same thing when I see how the trust fund projects are now being used to shine. When was it left up to some, we would not have been anywhere with that trust fund. So, Mr. Marcel Gomes, who served on behalf of the government of Sint Maarten from the initial days, I want to say thank you, Mr. Marcel Gomes, for your service on the Steering Committee on behalf of Sint Maarten, and I do hope that the one following in your footsteps will make use of the vast amount of experience that you have built up in that function. Mr. Chairman, I want to then, on another note, direct myself, while I know you're serving today as chairperson of the Justice Committee, I want to direct myself to you as member of the Presidium, the second Vice Chair of Parliament, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, but both the both the President as well as the first acting President of Parliament are out and will be out. If that can be confirmed, is that so? Unofficially, I took note of the absence by our President of Parliament due to medical reasons. I wish him well, and I would like to know if we have any idea how long our President would be out and our first acting President as well. And I refer to this because while we are in a so-called preparation week right now, in addition to this meeting, we have several meetings, today Wednesday and tomorrow Thursday. I think even Friday we might have something. But Mr. Chairman, following that, next week, which should be the last official meeting week before the Parliament goes on recess. And there are some very, very important matters that, in my opinion, should be dealt with, which are Parliament's responsibilities before this Parliament goes on recess. What are these issues? One, finally, the law on the indexation of the pension, on which pensioners have been waiting since January. Promised since January that the pensions would have been indexed. Lo and behold, the pension indexation, so the index on the pension for the pensioners of Sint Maarten, can only happen if the law is adjusted due to the way that the cost of living index is calculated by the Central Bureau for Statistics. I know it's on the agenda. but it's on the agenda for the Central Committee. And I would like to know if we will be able to deal with this law and handle it, approve it as soon as possible so that the indexation of the pensions can go into effect. Secondly, the law on higher education. Over the years, members of parliament, ministers of education have been working on and asking about this law. This law, this draft law, finally, law on higher education, is at the parliament since, if I recall well, February of this year. What's the holdup? Is it with parliament? Is it getting the minister here to explain the law? What is the holdup on putting the law on higher education on the table of parliament for handling? Thirdly, the budget 2023. The budget 2023 has received, after Parliament's approval, it has received the green light, so to speak, because it's not really approval, the green light by the CFT. However, in giving this green light, which includes the possibility for loans to finance capital projects, the government of Sint Maarten indicated to the CFT that a budget amendment would have followed ASAP. That is how the green light on the budget 2023 as passed by Parliament was given by the CFT. Where is the budget amendment? Are all of these things, as I just mentioned, now going to enter a waiting pattern until come August, God's willing, when Parliament will resume its duties? So, Mr. Chairman, as far as I'm concerned, given the schedule that we have received for this week, a preparation week after all, if these answers can be provided, and in fact, many of them have been put in writing to the President of Parliament, hence my request about the status or the position of the President of Parliament at this point in time. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And next we have MP George Pantaflet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you, the Chair, members of the Committee, Justice, of course, our invited guests, those who are viewing by the available medium, and of course, sitting also in a tribune. Mr. Chairman, I just want to, on a very light note, give a special congratulations to Mr. Juan Diego Febres Gonzalez, who, as a Venezuelan, came here with his family. He said just with a suitcase for each one of them, not able to speak English or Dutch, but was able to complete his education after 5 years at the Dr. Martin Luther King's Junior School, and he will now be attending St. Dominique. So I want to congratulate him and his parents and say to all those who have come to this island, maybe not being able to speak either language, but because of being ambitious and determined, were able to achieve this. So it shows that nothing is impossible once you make up your mind to do so. So again, congratulations to Mr. Fabris and his family, and of course, all those who are also doing their best in order to improve themselves education-wise. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP George Pantaflet. I would like to respond to quite a few things that were stated here today, to set a few things to the record straight, to make sure that especially those viewing and the members of Parliament are indeed aware about the operations of Parliament, the responsibilities of committees, our role and my role as committee chair. Members of Parliament and the public, I would first like to read for you what the description of the Committee of Justice is. The first task of the Committee of Justice is to control the government by regularly debating with the Minister of Justice and stakeholders. The Committee of Justice of Parliament investigates issues related to inter alia, police, prison, human rights, terrorism, immigration, asylum, i.e. inter alia, anything related within the framework of justice. This committee also studies all reports and correspondence from the public that is sent to them for handling. All, not some, not pick and choose, not feel that I don't like this person or what their political aspirations are, all. On January the 20th, 2023, IS document 374 of this year, the Parliament of Sint Maarten received a request from 2 foundations, not one, 2 foundations, later joined also by the Drag Racing Association of Sint Maarten, requesting a meeting where some of the points designating areas for frequent events, obtaining designated areas for different events to take place, and I think the members of Parliament are very familiar about what we are here to discuss. Parliament's role, the role of the committee, my role as committee chair, is to handle the request. That is my responsibility, and that is our duty as Parliament, as members of Parliament, as chairs of committees, to handle these things. If anyone feels that because whether a citizen running on a list or not should not be given the opportunity to exercise their right to have such a request be honored, that is for the account of whoever is on that chair. This chairman of Parliament is not doing that. We have honored many requests from even foreigners like Peter Harris to sit in Parliament and speak to us. And we honor it, not because of political reasons, but because that is the procedure and responsibility of the committees, and it is important for us to be abreast of what our people want to tell us. So I personally, I don't feel Parliament was disrespected. I felt embarrassed for Parliament. The fact that members of Parliament will now knowingly choose to purposely boycott a meeting for the admitted reasons of, I feel the person is political or whatever, is quite embarrassing for the Parliament of Sint Maarten. Because it means that what I just described as our, so to speak, function as a committee is put aside when one's personal opinion is, let's brush aside the other associations that are here for the sake of one individual that is also contributing to this debate. Mention was made of the Drag Racing Association being in Parliament before. Well, I'm happy that they are here again. They were not forced to be here. I look forward to hearing what they want to contribute as well. And it is this Parliament, not previous Parliaments, that should also hear what is happening within our country in this very important topic. The Cross Crew Clique is another association. Mr. Richardson did have an emergency and is trying to make his way here as soon as possible. But they too have been very active, especially in the area of Sucker Garden, Arch Road, and other areas, trying to educate our young men and women to be very careful on the road and find a better, more responsible way to display their talents. And they want to come to the Parliament of Sint Maarten and the Committee of Justice because that is the platform that our Parliament has created for any person to request such a meeting. And I'm proud to have honored it today. And I'm happy that the members of Parliament have chosen to say, yes, let us attend. That's a good step in the right direction, and I hope that's something we can handle and have going forward. Proper representation and responsible, taking our job that everybody looks at us as we're so high paid. Well, let us come, attend, and support these discussions that we continue to have. Now, let me address the issue of this backlog and the struggle that members of Parliament and opposition members feel they have in terms of calling meetings. Members of Parliament, on October the 27th, when the former chair of Parliament left and stated right here, sitting here, in her last statement, she stated, quote, there are 30+ meetings still pending. So up to the last moment that that chair served as chair, there were 30+ meetings. With all her best effort and attention, as she said, she put into the operations of Parliament, there were 30+ meetings. Members of Parliament, let me update you as to what the latest figures are in terms of meetings in which ministers are being requested, their attendance. On October the 27th, when the former chair, Grisha Martin, had left, there were a total of 26 meetings in which ministers' presence were requested, opposition and coalition. A large number of meetings. Today, that number is 15. With the calling of the meeting on TELEM, spatial planning, the meeting on all of these different meetings that we're calling, that number will continue to go down. I believe that the Presidium making the decision to work as a team, to try our best to get the backlog of meetings handled, reducing them from 32 to 15, I think any objective measure will say we have done our best. We will continue to try to ensure that all of these things are handled in a timely fashion as possible, with interactions with the ministers and ensuring that they respect the Parliament of Sint Maarten to be able to attend these meetings. Furthermore, in terms of the handling of laws, absolutely. That is one of the most important things that members of Parliament have to do. And that is why the Presidium, or the schedule that was sent out by the Chair of Parliament, includes the handling of 3 laws before the recess, including higher education, the cinema ordinance, the pension, the indexation of the pension, and others. We're trying our best to make sure these are handled before we go on recess. So absolutely, I agree with the theme for that. But to make it seem like we have just gone from 32 to 50 meetings is absolutely false. On the contrary, we have worked extremely hard to deal with the backlog of meetings, and we will continue to do so. Anyone framing so and making it seem like when they were the Chair of Parliament did such an integral job of calling meetings should be reminded of the farce that took place in Parliament when the meeting that was called for them to be removed as chair, that suddenly the rules were out the window. And for the first time I ever witnessed a Chair of Parliament walk out of a meeting. We've had groups of members walk out of a meeting to make a meeting end. Never before have I seen, for self-preservation and own selfish reasons, the hammer is hit and we walk out because I say this meeting ain't happening, and wants to speak today of how integral and great they conduct meetings. The fact is, we have never conducted ourselves that way. So I have absolute respect for all of the members of Parliament and their meeting requests. We work together, MP Bijlani, the Chairman of Parliament, William Marlin, the first Vice Chairman, and myself as second Vice Chairman, to continue to try to get as many meetings called as possible, because it is important to allow all of you to do the job as members of Parliament. So I hope those addresses those concerns. I do want to also point to IS 865. This is the one for Bijlani. MP Westcott Williams, IS 865. The dates that are stated there are the dates when MP Bijlani will not be available. And MP William Marlin is notice of absence for this morning's meeting, but has indicated he will be for the meeting this afternoon. And hopefully with his health continuing to improve, he will continue to be here for further meetings. So only for this moment, I am acting Chair of Parliament. Thank you, members of Parliament, and hopefully with the all of the notifications, let me put it that way, we can now go to the role of the committee, which is to hear from our esteemed guest to talk about what we have here on our agenda today. And that agenda is presentation on motor drag racing events and the significance of a drag strip on Sint Maarten. This is IS 374 of the 2022-2023 parliamentary year, dated January 23rd, 2023. We go over to the agenda point. As mentioned earlier, on January 23, 2023, Parliament received a letter from representatives of the You Deserve It Foundation and the Cross Crew Click Foundation with the request for a meeting with the aforementioned agenda point. It is good to note that this meeting was originally called for Monday, May 22nd, 2023, but was not held due to lack of quorum. Members of Parliament, within the letter that was received in January, the motivation for the request of this meeting was stated. We expect that there is going to be a presentation from our guests here today. I would ask if they can each introduce themselves, after which we can start the presentation. I'm happy that we have this meeting started, and let's get to the business of the Committee of Justice. I will start to my right, and then we can ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and you can start the presentation. You can just press the button, please. The one on the right. Yeah.
Morning. Thank you for allowing us the possibility to come here today in front of you guys and give our presentation. My name is Idel-Jan Herenveen. I think by now everybody already knows who I am. I come here together with Cross Crew Click Racing Foundation. At this moment, he has an emergency, so I will speak for him or represent his foundation. And also You Deserve the Foundation, which works with mothers. We are focusing on mothers, especially single mothers, and a lot of us are parents of bikers, drag racers, or have brothers, sisters that are active in this sport.
Sir Richardson has just called, and he did indicate that he's trying to make it as soon as possible. Next, Ms. Richardson.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. of Parliament. Yes, this is my first time here, which part I'm excited to be here. I'm the secretary of the Sint Maarten Drag Racing Association for over a couple of years now, and yeah, ready to hear what we have to offer and what we're ready to receive. We're ready for a drag strip. So that is what we want. That's why I'm here. Next.
Do have a slight technical issue. Good morning.
My name is Raymond Connor. I'm president of the Drag Racing Association. We come here today to, first we want to say thanks for inviting us. This is our first time. We come here today because we have some problems where we put requests and stuff for different things and we're not receiving them, not receiving an answer either. And we always go away, put Sint Maarten on the map, and we always win, come back with a trophy, and when we look for assistance to what we have to do, we don't get it. So, yeah, thanks for inviting us.
It is my pleasure to have you here on behalf of the committee. Ms. Herenveen, you will be doing the presentation? Or you want to start first? Okay, just allow a moment for them to shift seats. Yes, we did have a little technical issue with one of the mics. You'll proceed, Mr. Connor?
Okay. What we come here basically for is that we started out Stacia with their drag race trip. We went down with like 3 cars, and they put boundaries and stuff, and we showed them how it's been done. It was my car, which was a Chevy Camaro, James Cutting Edge, and Carlos Nuts and Bolts Ford Mustang. And since that, they got their permit to do their annual races and stuff like that. We came back here and we was trying to get ours. Multiple different presidents was trying to get it. We went to Antigua where we won. We had our parliamentarians come down with us too and say we getting a track. We never get it. We went to St. Croix. We went all over. We went to meetings in the government building. They signed it into accord. We never get it. We went by the sandbank where we carry dirt, sand, pull trucks, get pictures, gonna come there. We never get it. As I understood, someone else they give it to because they was doing some work for them on the dump. Then I get to find out it's about noise and stuff. I mean, come on. We have the carnival making a lot of noise, people making a lot of noise. This is educational stuff for the kids. We do professional drag racing. We educate the kids. When we go to Nevis or wherever we go, we always carry a couple of them with us. It's professionally done. Most of them don't want to go back on the streets. They want to go to a track, do it professionally. And we put in multiple papers now. I even got my lawyer to draft up a letter also to handle that for us. We never got back an answer. We got a number. We have all the documents here. And I think right now, it's enough is enough. It's for the youth. Locals is asking to get something done. We need something done. If they don't want to finance a track, they can at least give us a long lease on the land where we have the documents, everything, where we stipulate where we want it. And we're going to, piece by piece, do what we have to do. And we're going to get it done. All we need is a nice wide road, a length. and we can piece by piece do something so we can practice and further everybody, educate them. We have the solution to stop the illegal drag racing on the streets. We have the solution to bring the guys them discipline and the kids them from doing all the illegal things. They need a place to practice the sport, to do it the right way. If we have that, I can guarantee you all that nonsense and crap that's going on right now on the streets is gonna stop. You cannot stop illegal races. I've been small, I've been young. I started a race early. It takes 5 minutes to go somewhere and set up a race, race done. It's dangerous, but it's the wrong way. And that's what I'm showing everybody, because we go when we race. We keep normal shops for the kids. We talk to them, we do little safety regulations. If they get a track, all of this is finished. You know, I'm not a lot of people thinking, yeah, it's terrible, it's bad. Let me tell you, we go, we all places. Just getting on a plane is a risk. And we need to modernize now. It's not in the old time days, you understand? We rarely have any kind of mishaps. We're not allowed to smoke, drink. It's very strict regulated rules and regulations in the sport. And it's professionally done. It's not like you just jump in a can, you could do what you want. You have to go through certain tests and stuff like that. So I'm asking today because we had enough is enough. I've been sitting down waiting, and every time we're watching the news to see when they're gonna approve our thing that we want, and nothing is being done. Everything from overseas is coming. You've seen this project, that project, but the main thing for Sint Maarten, to bring to Sint Maarten where we go, everybody's asking, we don't have a track. Why are you guys so good? Why are you guys winning? Because we have the drive. We don't go to the next country to lose. We go to win and bring back, put Sint Maarten on a map. So now the thing is, we need to get what was promised to us in multiple different things, and we never get it. Okay, we need to get that. And I don't want like from them word no more, because word don't mean nothing. You understand? They've been giving us word, promises, nothing ever happened. Okay, thank you very much. I'll put you over to my secretary now. She's gonna explain the rest.
Sure. Before I do that, I would like to just take a 1-minute adjournment to make an adjustment to the names so that those viewing will be able to see it correctly. So we'll just adjourn for 1 minute. Welcome back, members of the Committee of Justice and the public viewing. I now turn the floor to Ms. Richardson, who will continue the presentation.
Thank you. Sint Maarten Drag Racing Association has been incorporated since...
I'm sorry, 1 second. Can you press the button again?
Okay. Yes, Sint Maarten Drag Racing Association has been incorporated since 2006. The purpose of foundation is to organize and promote drag racing sport on Sint Maarten, neighboring island as well as internationally, and to do everything related with the aforementioned and so forth. There too, all this in the widest sense of words. So we go out, do our best, especially when we go to the foreign countries, international country, which part the last time we went to Nevis in May, and we had a youngster, I have to say this, a youngster, and he is only 18? No. 19. He's 19 years, have his license, everything. And you wouldn't believe, from small already, he was under his father's wing, and his grandfather, and his sister, and his aunt, And this youngster is so dedicated that you wouldn't believe he came home with a trophy to represent Sint Maarten. Out of 20 participants in Nevis, he came out the first place. Can you imagine? Never have a strip here in Sint Maarten, but he did his best. And he worked hard at it. So we're not making joke. We want to have our strips so this way that we can educate our children, the children that want to be in the drag racing, for example, or even riding a bike. We have entered a letter to the government, which part I have right here, on the 5th of May, 2022, under the number 10381. So which we're asking for a drag strip. We have the land, everything here, and we never get an answer. We never get a letter stating that, pardon? It was received, yes, it was received, yes. But we never get an answer stating that, yeah, they have anything in mind for us or call us in for a meeting, nothing. So we still are waiting on this. So the letter was sent in, received on the 5th, 2020, and the number was 10381. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that, those statements. Next, we have Ms. Idilien Herenveen.
Good morning to everybody. Just for me to address real short on what is said to me or about the foundation. Yes, my foundation was proudly established on the 1st of June. That does not mean that we have not been active in helping people before our foundation was established. I do apologize if you felt a certain way about the video. I'm not apologizing for my content. The video was from a point of anger, and as a citizen, how I feel coming in here. It does not matter if I am political oriented or whatever. It was not about me or my foundation. It was about the foundation sitting next to me that represents a group of racing young boys. It's not about the shine or taking my shine. I stated what I feel, and I will not regret, and I will not back down on what I said. If it came over a certain way, I do apologize for that, because it wasn't meant to insult anybody. I stated, and I repeat, that I was disappointed, and I feel as a citizen, I can say if I'm disappointed in the representative that is there to represent us as a community. To answer really short, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger, I never said you're campaigning on it. I said you promised. And I have no problem to sit with you separate and get these boys together. We can sit and then you can hear their part. I have no problem with that, because me, I'm open with working with anybody as long as we get to a common goal, which is for these boys. To say that, I wanted to, again, thank you for allowing us the possibility to share our views, especially me as a parent of a biker and friends that are active drag racers. So as a parent, I can express the feeling and the passion that a biker experiences. In the last 10 years, the sport and the art of biking have become very popular in various parts of the world. There is an increase in the younger generation being a part of this sport. Many bikers have gained fame in participating in the sport, and it is evident that the youth of Sint Maarten has gained interest in the sport as social media removes all boundaries to witness what's happening worldwide. There are many talented riders and dragsters on the prestigious islands of Sint Maarten who do not have an outlet for growth in this sport. The lack of facility has limited the bikers and dragster drivers an opportunity to develop in this sport. By referring to the word expression, I'm emphasizing the adrenaline that these bikers and these drag racers feel. It's an expression of freeing up and showing what they can do. Therefore, instead of criticizing, we should be emphasizing creating opportunities and developing areas that allow these bikers and drag racers to grow and develop in this sport. As a mother that witnessed the incident occurred on Sunday, January 15, 2023 in Dutch Quarter firsthand, I realized that by not creating and voicing opinions and starting to make a change, we are opening more opportunities for these type of incidents to occur. As a community, we are quick to criticize and villainize these bikers and drag racers by saying, and I quote, "Irresponsible motorcyclist was using the road recklessly by engaging in stunts and hoping which caused a serious accident." After this statement, it was followed by expressing the illegality of stunt and bike riding and that there will be cracking down on street racing in the upcoming period. We are always quick to prohibit situations when accidents occur, such as taking away bikes. What about when reckless car drivers take a life of a biker who was or is following the rules when it comes to bike riding? What are the consequences? A slap on the wrist? Taking away the driver's license for a few years? Or community service? As a community, it is time that the criticizing stops and we start having solutions as creating areas and frequent events where our bikers and drag racers can train, compete, and show their art. Example, it is the responsibility of the quick processing of permits for drag racing and stunting events by working in close collaboration with the police, fire department, and ambulance. So again, we did not come here to ask permission for events. That's why I said it was important for us to do our presentation so you guys can see why we are here. Given designated areas for these people to exercise have to and take place, such as blocking off, example, the Walter Niesbed Road for a specific time, example on a Sunday during hours where traffic is minimal. At this time, they can use the Kanahiter or the drivers can use the Kanahiter or the back street where traffic can be utilized, while the bikers and the drag racers can make use of the Walter Niesbed Road. This is a temporary solution until we can get to a permanent solution, which would be a drag race trip. Assistance must be given to these bikers and drag racers to structure their teams. Example, creating organizations with representation as I have next to me right here. And this can allow these bikers and drag racers to create motorcade, bike shows, car shows, and this can prohibit them from stunting on the road and not only risking others' lives, but also theirs. Finally, it's time for us to build the drag strip. Besides practicing the sports of biking and dragging, programs can be created to teach the youth and participants as bike mechanics and drag vehicle mechanic. This is an opportunity to create jobs within the youth. Tourism in Sint Maarten is a core business. By establishing these facilities, we can add an additional tourism niche, attracting sportsmen in the field from overseas to come and participate in international drag strip and biking events. As these international events are already happening in other surrounding Caribbean islands such as Statia, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Dominica, Santo Domingo, Curacao, Aruba, and even Bonaire is starting. The implementation of such events will not have to be worked out from scratch, as we are able to copy, paste, and just adjust where we need it. It is visible that the French side, of which colleagues are also in talks with us, are also working on expanding these activities. A clear indication of this was the racing event held on the 23rd of April 2023 and the ongoing events planned by the French Drag Racing Association. Just like the cooperation is needed in other areas on our islands between the French and the Dutch, this is no exception. Isn't that what we promise every November the 11th when we shake hands at the border and take pictures? Now it is time to make at least this dream come true for the youth of Sint Maarten and Sint Maarten. To emphasize, this project will create more visitors to our island. It will give our biking youth the possibility to let off steam by doing their tricks in a controlled and safe environment, thus not on the public road, because it is an ongoing issue right now on the public roads. We can start developing our drag racing sport for creating jobs as mechanics and other areas that are needed to execute these sports. We are not here today to request money, as we know our country is presently cash-strapped. In fact, if this is successful, this can contribute to very much needed liquidity to our coffers. We are here to only request government long-term lease land. Once this land has been pledged and forthcoming, the French and Dutch Association can finalize a business case which will seek sponsors, advertisers, and other investors to make this a reality. In 1996, Fundación Autosport Curaçao received land in Rondeclip, Curaçao, to build a drag racing facility from the government. This was donated to the foundation for a symbolic amount of 1 Antillean guilders. Now, the laws might have changed as if they changed after 10 in Curaçao and might not be able to do it for a symbolic amount of 1 guilder. But there must be a solution where it can be handed or given to the association. Besides the request of land, you may be asking yourself why we are presenting this in the Justice Committee before approaching the Council of Ministers. Very simple answer. We want to establish if this project has a political blessing from this institution, which is Parliament. Without the blessing, we are concerned that we will be fighting an uphill battle. Once again, this project will be then placed on shelves, which will disappoint the youth on both sides of the islands tremendously. And why government land? It's because the availability of land is extremely scarce. So it's important that we get it done now and not later until there's no more government land. And private land, even if available, is extremely expensive. In closing, there has been too many promises and never actions. A promise is simply a comfort to a fool. And it is time for us to stop and put our money where our mouth is. This would alleviate the increase in accidents and death within our communities. I would like to wish, like all families, both bikers, mind, drivers, and sense, strength and not to give up hope. This is not meant to degrade or point fingers, but as mentioned earlier, being a mother of a biker, this is just to open minds, to think a little further and out of the box, to find solutions to this stunting and racing situation. With that said, we should not give up and not allow a problem to defeat us. So thank you.
Thank you for that presentation as well. If there's no other statements at this time, then I will turn the floor over to the members of the committee. First, we have MP Westcott Williams. You have the floor.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman, and my thanks through you for the presentations as we received them here this morning. Mr. Chairman, I would like to understand, hearing from Mr. Connor, the long fight, and I know for a fact, with respect to a drag racing strip track. And so have you now, together with the other foundations, have you joined forces in your request to government, is my question. So is it now these foundations, 3 of them, have now solidified the requests, in your case, going back for years? Is it now a joint request to the government from all of the associations involved? And if that is the case, does it, for all the foundations, boil down to what has been presented as the request on the screen this morning? So in other words, is it now that all associated foundations in this cause are seeking to be able, and it was explained, to get land, build an official track, and have the temporary use of the Suwaliga Boulevard, and be able to get permits in a hurry? I have put together quickly what are some of the items I'm understanding. So is that the question? No, not is that. That is my question. Is that the case that all of the foundations now that have something to do with racing and stunting, drag and otherwise, that they have now put their forces together and are seeking to get understanding and approval by the government? That's my first question. Secondly, especially in the case of Mr. Connor and his foundation, have you had specific sit-downs with members of government, especially the members, I'm talking ministers? I guess you were probably even doing it before 10-10-10. So have you, when was your last sit down with one of the persons who can make a decision where this is concerned? When was your last sit down? What was the reaction that you got? How formal or informal is the cooperation with the French authorities? Are you in any way collaborating with organizations on the French side, such as Uplifting Moms, an organization that also has pretty much the same objective, especially where the bikers are concerned? As a note, I wish to state here that an organization that I am part of are the ones responsible for the Safe Roads, Save Lives. And the first aim of that organization with that project, Safe Road, Save Lives, had to do with the issue of many of our bikers getting in accidents, the fact that many of them do not wear helmets. And the first attempt by the organization was to be able to provide helmets to bikers. In order to do this, the first approach was to invite the police chief of Sint Maarten to get his take on the matter. That happened, and the organization was informed of the challenges that the police force is facing. Leading me to ask, have you had any discussion with members of the police force, especially of the traffic department, those on the ground, in terms of looking at the proposal that you have there? I am quite interested in understanding, especially in the most recent past, your interaction with government, because now I need to add something here to what several of my colleagues indicated. You are here this morning, and in your view, you would like this body, consisting of several factions, which are political entities and independent members of parliament, and you would want to receive a blessing for this project. In other words, you are suggesting for us to kind of basically hold the fingers of the government, no pun intended, to the fire where action is concerned. I wish I could be one of those who would get any heeding from the government on this matter. Even if I had to jump up outside and say, I am for this project, government, I want you to do something. Unfortunately, in the political realm which this body operates in, that is not how it works. I would have loved to have together here with you this morning those who can make a decision. And that would have been the minister and those supporting the cabinet of the minister, somebody to give you answers to your plea. I hear it. Enough is enough, Mr. Connor said. And so I don't know if what you're seeking today can be had in this meeting this morning. What I do think is important, especially with what I'm understanding to be a plethora of letters and requests in at government, no answer but verbal promises to bring those who are making these, who are either saying yes or no. If you're saying no, then why? Is it impossible what is being asked? Then say that. And if you're saying yes, what does it take to happen? And you can't give me those answers, and I can't hold you to giving me answers. But the ministers responsible are accountable to us. So if your request is very specific in terms of we want a piece of land or area dedicated to this sport, and then after all of those years, it's a simple yes, it's possible, or it's no. We have it or we do not have it. I have understood that and correct me if I'm wrong, but that the government currently has given approval to the proposal by Mrs. Herefeen. Is that correct, yes or not? Do you have a commitment from the government? If you do, are they living up to that commitment? Because if you tell me no, then I could then follow up on such a request. Did you not indicate to Mrs. Herefeen that this would have been possible or not? So what do you have right now for the members of parliament in the case of myself? That's all I can do. I can't run over to the government building and say, I want a little sit down here with all you, tell me what you do with this project or not. But if you're telling me that they either promise, sign off to something, whatever the case may be, and they're not, that's a different story. So I would really like to know, so where are we at right now with getting accomplished what you are requesting? And again, in the case of Mr. Connor, by the way, my first car, maybe my second one, was a Camaro Z29. And they told me at the time it was too fast for me. My late husband thought that maybe I'll just run the things up. But anyhow, and in fact, those cars were so good, it was on the road in Grand Cars up to a couple of years ago. That's a true little addition I had to add in there. Somebody needs some water? Oh, okay. You Ann? Oh, okay. No, sorry. I thought it's Ann there. I thought Ann there laughing at me. But no, but in all seriousness, so I just, and that's a long time ago, and I guess even back then they were talking about drag racing. Not a long time ago. My second car is many years ago. And but I really would like to know where you are at this time. I don't want you to have to come back in here next year with whoever will be sitting in front of you with the same story, or the year after next, whenever it is. So, Mr. Chairman, I really would like to get a tab on where we stand with government's reaction to them. You know, I could sit down here and promise you the world and tell you what I think about it, but at the end of the day, if the government and those supporting the government are not in favor or don't want to push it, unfortunately, it ain't gonna happen in a hurry. I just needed to put that out there because I would hate for 6 months down the line, you say, but MP Westcott, you tell me in the parliament meeting that you in favor of this project. What did you do? Now, from this vantage point right now, there ain't much I can do but to question the government on their action or inaction, also in your case. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. Next, MP Gums.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you, my colleagues, the foundations present with us today, and to those joining us online or via radio. Thank you for the presentations that you all made, and I have to echo MP Westcott in this regard of I would like to know what the status of the discussions is with government. I prefer to hear their thoughts first because, as the MP just mentioned, and as I myself recall, I think there was some time before around Hurricane Lewis where the space behind Milford Hazel was backfilled to allow for what was promised to be a drag strip. And I think at the time, a current MP, who was then a sitting commissioner, basically made a decision to not fulfill that promise, from what I've been made to understand by the persons I know involved with drag racing. But the land was backfilled. So I feel like, I would like to know what government, their actual standpoint on it is before I can even say, it has my blessing or not. Further to that, though, from my own personal opinion, I have to say that I don't regard everyone on a bike as being part of bike life, the same way that I don't think that everyone who likes to drive cars fast is part of drag racing. I think that it is a profession where you are very careful, and outside of being in an official race, you don't drive reckless. You don't do illegal tricks. You don't drive like most of these bikers drive when they almost clip your car, rearing up with no headlights on, etc. I don't regard those people as being part of your target market, but that's just me. So I don't see that having a strip would curb illegal tricks and reckless driving when it comes to those persons. But in addition to knowing what government stance is, I would like to know, Mr. Chairman, what funding options, if any, have the foundations looked into with regards to making the project a reality? Because as you yourself said, to get the land is one thing, to build the thing is another. So that's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Gums. Next, MP Grisha Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Hiravane, Ms. Richardson, and Mr. Corner for your presentation. I too echo the sentiments of all of the questions that MP Westcott just posed to you, through you, Mr. Chairman. I will await the answers there, but I just have a technical question, Mr. Connor, through you, Mr. Chairman, regarding Mr. Connor's presence here today. Were you here with us in the first meeting as well? Were you part of the request to be part of this meeting as well? And I would like to know through you, Mr. Chairman, then why Mr. Connor has decided maybe to opt into coming into. I'm trying to understand. I guess the answers would come clear after you respond to Ms. MP Westcott Williams' request on the two of you working together, seeing that I'm confused. Sorry, the timeline is not jiving for me that you had requested since May. Then Ms. Hiravane just got in June, and that Ms. Hiravane is saying that the government has already approved it. So I just want some clarity there. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, through you, I would like to also inform Ms. Hiravane that when you talk to people on the campaign trail and you mention to them that that's something I'm going to do, that's campaigning, that's a campaign promise. That alludes to a campaign promise. And I could have that conversation. I'm not well versed in that. And Mr. Chairman, but I do welcome us meeting with these persons that you mentioned before, getting to know each other. I think we should get to know each other a little more, Ms. Hiravane. A lot to discuss. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I also would like to maybe at the end, maybe you can sum up where you want this committee, what you want of this committee, how you propose this committee, what conclusions you want to draw, and how we move forward with this meeting, Mr. Chairman, since you called it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Grisha Martin. Next, MP Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to you, I would like to thank the associations for their presentation. But sadly, I must say that I am not surprised by the progress that has been noted by the associations coming from government. I believe Mr. Connor, Ms. Richardson, know a colleague of MP Gums and I very well, James' nephew, and he has been trying to keep us aware of how things are going. And I'm glad you're all here today, because if all associations fighting for the same thing come together, then we might actually get somewhere. Because in the last meeting, from what I was made aware, the Drag Racing Association was not here. Mr. Chairman, through you, I would also like to echo my colleagues today in asking what is expected from Parliament today in the Justice Committee. Or actually, through you, Mr. Chairman, what were you told that the Justice Committee is able to do for the cause? Because like an MP before me said, political blessing is not the forte of Parliament. And while I understand the fear of fighting an uphill battle, because that's what it has been, it is not the case that Parliament can help, because we do not have the authority to do these things, period. I agree with MP Westcott, and I would love to do something, but the fact is that even if we send a motion right now to the minister, passing it with 0 votes against, it still wouldn't fix it. And questions having no guarantee of receiving answers from the ministers, well, those are things that we're all aware of. Because we heard today that it is the duty of Parliament to give an ear to these issues, but it is also the duty of government to actually lend more than just a listening ear, because they are the executive branch. And as we could have clearly heard from associations, they have been talking for years, and persons have been pretending to listen with no solution. So if there is no cohesion within the coalition and the Council of Ministers to actually provide you with an actual avenue to get something done, but they want to suffice with you coming to Parliament and the Justice Committee while they know that we can't really do anything about it, well, that just raises questions by itself. But we need to get effective, regardless of what we do. So I would like to ask the associations, for you, Mr. Chairman, when it comes to the request of land, did you guys already request as one association or as the bulk where you would like it? Because I remember when I was in Domain, this has been a constant issue. I've had meetings with Mr. Bell, with Mr. Benders. We have talked about the strip. We have talked about it being there on the edge of the pond island. I remember these conversations, and by the end of the day, if a minister does not seem to see it as a priority, it just stops. I have seen multiple ministers come and entertain it, and sadly, it was not a priority by the end of the tenure because government dropped. And these are just political facts. Now, also, when it comes to Vromi and justice, have you guys ever been invited by Vromi to talk about whether or not there is long lease land available? Because Sint Maarten does not have the luxury of having so much land as Curacao, and I remember this, coming from Curacao, we have a pista, which is very far from where people live, so you would not be bothered by the noise. And, you know, those are things that were given thought before they decided, you know, to just go ahead. Stasia, for example, also has professional writers, but still are lacking a strip. And I do agree that we do need one, but we do need to put it somewhere that is suitable. And that is the discussion that I am not hearing a lot about. Where are we going to put it? Because over the years, promises have been made, campaign promises have been made from factions in this parliament. Well, maybe not here today, but in this parliament. And nothing has happened. And I am talking more than 10 years ago. Then we come to the aspect of the justice, because I myself also have a bike license, but that is also one of the first issues, because I have multiple friends who are not only drag racers, but also people who do stunts. And I can honestly say that a lot of them do not have their bike license. Now, whether or not a bike license makes you, you know, adequate to actually ride a bike is a different story. But since we are talking about all of these things, we're talking about the Justice Department, we're talking about legalizing it, we're talking about educating the people and the public. These are the things that I also think would be very important in the initiative to actually push them to do so, you know? And then my question would be, how would the Justice Department, how are they assisting in this? And, you know, the next thing, Mr. Chairman, is there's a slight difference, well, actually a big difference between street racing and riders who want to do stunts. You know, here in Sint Maarten, we have the tendency of when we want to do stunts, we go to the front side or we head up Bellevue, because you would need a little bit more than a quarter mile to actually do them wheelies and do all of these stunts that you would want to do. The front side is a big enthusiast of the latter. So my question is, in your preparations and talks, is there a distinction being made between these two, and how is it addressed? And sadly, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Chairman, that there is always going to be a few that will spoil it for the bunch. Because while been to multiple shows, not only in Curacao, but also here in the Tellem parking lot, which were constant successes. I also remember an incident where a group of bikers, maybe rather to lack of knowledge or education or anything similar, decided to attack a car and throw rocks at it, cutting a baby in the face. And this picture made the front page of the Daily Herald, which we also addressed publicly. But it's bittersweet to see that these things, these aspects of bike life, so to say, are being highlighted by the community and by the media, while these things, for example, actually educating the people on drag racing, on stunt riding, that is not a priority. So that would be my, my last comment on it, Mr. Chairman, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, MP Peterson. Next, MP Pantaflet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me thank the presenters, Mr. Connor, Ms. Richardson, and Ms. Hidden Vein for their presentation and their passion about what it is that they want to do. Former speakers before me, I can concur with some of their statements as to the issue of not everyone will be covered on the what they would call drag racing or even doing stunts, because, again, I don't think there's anyone sitting in here who have not had experiences where you find them passing on the right-hand side and left-hand side, no lights, nothing at all, sometimes coming towards you straight on and so on. And unfortunately, it is a serious risk. But what you're trying to do, I think, is important because, not because something is rampant, and it is rampant in Sint Maarten on this side. I cannot speak much for the French side, but even though sometimes taking my little drives around there, I hear the noise and then I see the flash and then I know something passed me. So it is something that's very, very, very dangerous, but there's nothing much we can do about that right now, of course, except to have more control on the roads and be more strict when it comes to these things. But at the same time, what you're doing, finding an outlet for those who are serious about definitely making it a hobby that they love to do. And you cannot blame anyone for what it is he or she feels, because sometimes it's something that you love to do, something that a gift that you have gotten, and you need a place in order to let out that steam or to enjoy your hobby. One of the things that I think is important is continuous bringing it to the public. This is a forum. You have the radio, you have TV, continuous, because once you do that, at least people become more and more aware as to the importance of having things controlled as much as you can. Something that came to my mind is the issue of, because I believe Mr. Connor said that they don't get hurt very easily. What happens if somebody gets hurt? Are they covered by the insurance and so on? You see, that's a key thing, you know? Because if you're having these things, you must have at least the Red Cross or so on, or some emergency team, first aid, to be present, because accidents do happen, even though you try to avoid as much as you can. So would they be covered? Because, again, not being involved in this kind of events, I would venture to say that I believe insurance companies would charge them very heavily because, you know what I mean, something can happen, and of course, it can cause them quite some sum, and you know, people can also die in those situations. So the issue of insurance for me is very important. I believe the answer was covered already when I believe my colleague, Emmy Gomes, mentioned the issue of not everyone, of course, you know, is part of the organization, but the issue is we must, as I said, we must ensure that as much as possible we find an outlet for them. But I was getting at a point here, yes, the issue of the organization and its existence. I believe Mr. Connor said it exists something like 10 years, am I correct? The Drag Race Association is about, since 2006, that's 17 years. That's a long time. So, you know, and I'm glad my colleague mentioned a particular commission and so on, because it shows you how long you have been trying to get this matter solved. So I don't want the impression to be created as if it's just this government, but it's something that's been going on for quite a long time. And I believe that with this government, I'm sure, and definitely once you persist, we will find a solution to it, because it has to be found. We cannot turn a blind eye to this situation. It must be resolved. So again, I am saying thanks for bringing it to the awareness of Parliament. Yes, the executing force is always the government. But at the same time, Parliament has a role to play. And once you bring it to Parliament, we can definitely send some information or a request to the government to find exactly, have this been addressed, what's going on, where is it? You said you made requests. I do not know if you made many written requests or was it done verbally, because it is important to have documentation as to how often you requested and with whom you had those discussions. Again, thank you very much for your presentation this morning and much success. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Pantaflet, and next, MP Westcott Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a follow-up question, because more than one of the presenters referred to the international exposure, referred to sports, sports tourism, and I don't need an answer to this here today because you would need to think about it. But question one, have you, in the context of looking at broadening the sport and adding an economic context to it, have you taken note of the recent symposium by the governor, His Excellency Ajamu Bailey, and have you thought about it in this context? I know you're trying to get right here on Sint Maarten established, but have you looked at it from an economic prospect and given any additional thought to what it could mean economically? And I say this because the so-called orange economy that would include this kind of a venture is very important to the party that I represent. So I'm just wondering if you have been able to. If you haven't yet, it's okay. But you never know. Maybe you have been thinking about it when you get beyond this point of the request that you have out. So, Mr. Chairman, just that addition. But if you're not, if you haven't given it any thought, just tell me that you'll hold it for another time, and that would be sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I see no further questions from the committee members at this time, but I do too also want to first of all once again thank you for the presentations and the information that you've provided in your introduction. What I think is very interesting about not just your presentation, but I'm very pleased with the level of engagement that we've received from the members of the committee. I think that does prove that despite however we may have come to this meeting today, there is a level of engagement where members of the committee want to understand what is the interaction with the government, what are you doing, how long have you been asking for this, what's the proposed solution for this. Had this meeting not been called, had I simply ignored your request, the opportunity that was given to the members of the committee today would have been lost. So I think it's very good that you've heard quite some interesting remarks, questions, comments from so many members, and that is something that I look forward to hearing the answers to as well. The Parliament, the government, and the question regarding, okay, Parliament role, government role, why are you here, what does the committee plan to do? It is no strange thing for the committee or any committee to actually decide, regardless of what the government may want, we can also make our own initiatives via our own rights to be able to engage with the government and ensure that we see certain action. This is something not very unfamiliar to the Parliament. Despite the government having the ultimate say, we, for example, decided the Parliament is not happy with the Penal Procedure Code. This very committee decided to draft our own changes and send it on to the government. The Parliament at the time was not happy with the fact that electoral reform was not proceeding the way it should. The Parliament decided to create the Electoral Reform Committee, and then they work on it, and that has to go to the government. The petition, you have petitions from members, for example, regarding Mullet Bay. The committee then decided, have those interactions with the government and state our positions. What all of those type of things have in common is, yes, it is ultimately up to the government to act. That is true. But it does not take away from, I think, our responsibility and our role as parliamentarians to go in that direction. Because I always harken back to the words of Dr. Ardern during orientation, which almost every day she would remind us, never undermine your own authority as members of Parliament. We shouldn't just sit back and say, well, the government hasn't done nothing for 17 years, so we ain't gonna do nothing about it. Hopefully, for example, with the fact that we have a meeting this afternoon with the Minister of Rami on spatial planning, one of the questions I would want to pose is, has something like this been incorporated into spatial planning for the country? Have considerations been made, being that you're creating a spatial planning strategy, which also includes things like the sound level, the land usage, and so on, for the possibility of leasing land to an organization to be able to realize a drag strip for Sint Maarten? being able to have this information now allows us to see, can that be incorporated into what is being presented to the members of parliament? I do have just a couple other questions as well. You mentioned the concern of mothers, and I would like if you can elaborate a little bit on that, because some people might be under the impression that it's just as easy as a mother to simply tell a child, don't go on the bike, stay home, or I'm gonna take away your PlayStation, and then that solves the problem. What is the reality of a mother of a biking enthusiast in terms of managing their enthusiasm with the need to know that you can go to sleep at night or you can go to work knowing that your child is safe? What is some of that we can understand what the plight of mothers are in that sense, of these bikers that want to be able to display their talents? Can you, from the association, Mr. Connor, can you tell us a little bit about the drag racing events in Statia in terms of how they are organized? Maybe is it something that is a regular, annual, or quarterly event? And what is the role, let's say, of the Island Council of Statia, as far as you know, in terms of promoting it and making sure that the safety is in place, the invitations that go out to other countries? Just give us a little bit more of what you think Sint Maarten can learn from what Statia is doing. There's also, I also kind of dovetailing on the question of MP George Pantaflet, the issue of insurance. It is always a gray area if someone gets gets hurt physically, but if there's a sort of negligence on the part of the person, if there is coverage. Being that I know you also work with SZV, maybe you can also highlight what the role of SZV is when these people might get injured, not just the one biking, but if there's an unfortunate situation where the other is hurt, and if there is some sort of important message that needs to be sent to people to understand that, you know, you're also risking the possibility of plunging yourself into huge debt if you, you know, act recklessly and maybe are not covered. Of course, the hospital is not going to close the door and say, well, you can't come in because you're injured, but somebody's going to have to pay that bill. It's either going to be the taxpayer or it's going to be the family that's going to be stuck with maybe tens of thousands of dollars in debt because you drove recklessly, and because of that, you basically injured yourself. You may not be covered. If we can maybe touch a little bit on that aspect too. Also, finally, I know, and I really wish Mr. Richardson all the best. He had a family member that had a sudden medical emergency, so he's currently dealing with that. And I think this aspect of the presentation he was going to more focus on based on our initial discussion that I had with him. But can you still maybe just highlight a little bit of what the Cross Crew Clicks vision was as a sort of interim solution for allowing events to take place on the Swaliga Boulevard? And finally, this is a general question to all of you. There's indeed differing opinions as to whether there's just some people that just want to go on the road and be, you know, reckless because that's just how they are, or these are just reckless people. Even if you big a drag strip, that is not going to stop. Can you tell us your interactions with especially these young men that love to do this? When you interact with them and you tell them, look, if there is indeed the reality of a drag strip given or a place provided for them to stunt, do you feel confident in your interactions with them that they will stop going on the public road and make use of the track? That the public can also have a sense of understanding that it is a solution that's tied to each other, that we will see less reckless driving on the road if they have an opportunity to perform their art on a drag strip. As I mentioned, there was quite a level of engagement to you all. I don't know if you need a few minutes to prepare the answers or if you're ready to go. What I'll do, I'll adjourn for 2 minutes so that we can discuss how much time might be needed for answering the questions. Meeting adjourned for 2 minutes. Good afternoon, or good morning still, once again, members of the Committee of Justice. There were quite some questions, and both foundations, associations would like to be able to go back to their membership with assistance to get some of those answers. However, there's a few general remarks they would like to at least leave the committee with before we would adjourn the meeting in order to continue so that they can return and have the opportunity to answer your questions as detailed as possible. Should I start with Mr. Connor? We'll go to Mr. Connor first and then down the line.
I want to say thank you guys for inviting us. It was very, very good, and it's been a long time since we had a thing with government. And pertaining to Ms. MP Sarah Westcott, question about exposure. Yes, we intend to exposure the whole thing. Is when we go away, this is what exactly brings in revenues. We have over 20,000 people that's be there just to come to see. A lot of people got tickets and they have exposure worldwide, one shot. And this is what brings revenues to everything. And we had a total of like 10 cars was gonna go. It dropped down to 7 and it went down with 3. And the amount of people that was there, they had drone covering everything just to come see 3 cars from Sint Maarten perform and win an event back to back. And it was a lot of exposure, and especially for the island. So this is what we get a lot of when we go. And pertaining to the other question about the safety with the cars from Mr. MP, I don't know exactly how the bike is. We planning to take over 2 with the bikes, but what we basically is on is the cars. They're the most safetiest thing ever. On the cars, you have a safety harness, they call it an 8-point, where you sit in a car, you strap top, center, all sides, so if the car turn up, you can't come out, just that unless you release the release. They have a 12-point and 8-point roll cage that's made from a special steel that the car don't cave in on you, and a safety net, so if the car turns up or flips, it keeps you inside of the car. I don't know really on the safety of the bikes how it'll be. I'm bearing in mind that they have a lot of negativity about the bikes, but I feel for sure if we get, like she said, get together and make it one thing and be with the bikes and the cars, it will be well regulated. And from 1 to 100, 99%, if we get the track, they will stop doing all the craziness they're doing on the road, especially with the bikes and the street cars, because they will have a place to come to do an event Friday afternoon, Saturday, at a certain time they have the event, the test and tune, Sunday is the race, and it finishes at a certain time also. And everybody will get in line, and they will want to come every weekend to an event that's gonna keep them off of the road and keep them from doing all of the illegal stuff they're doing. So from 1 to 100, I say 98, 99%, it will stop that illegal race. I've seen it happen already. The rest, other questions, we're going to get back to you guys with them, the answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Next, Ms. Richard, or Ms. Heerenveen. The button.
Again, thank you for all your questions and interaction. It's really appreciated. I will answer on some of them. The rest, as Mr. Connor said, we will get back on that. The economic benefits that it brings, yes, we have been working on it, and we have also taken examples from islands around us. For example, when it's held in Nevis, how hotels are full, car rentals are out of cars because people are coming to those competitions to watch cars, watch bikes on an international level compete. Same is happening in Station. Station does not have an official drag strip. They just have a street which they designated to hold competitions. But yet on this event, the next event will be the 8th of July, 9th of July. Its hotels are booked out, no car rentals, no flights on Win Air to get there. The ships are all, the boats are full, going back and forth. So it does give an economic boost. I will discuss Curacao. There was a show, 2nd of April, 12,000 people in an event to watch stunting, car stunting, bike stunting. It is proven worldwide that this is a sport, an area that is, the interest in it is raising and people are spending dollars to go see. So that is the economic benefit. In short of it, to talk about as a mother of a biker and also having close friends of that are related in bike, drag racing, noem het maar op. Yes, we come with rules. Make sure you have a helmet. If now we take away your bikes, or we do, at the end of the day, once they are there, we are trying to do our best to make sure they know how to conduct. A lot of them are conducting themselves and behaving themselves accordingly. They wear their helm, they do it. They're stunting, yes, there are some of them that do it because of the adrenaline, how they feel, and we are trying to have conversations with them, and a lot of them has stated to us that if they have a place to go do it, they will go and do it there. And of course, we have conversations with them where we said, we were gonna propose to the police or something, if we give you this designated area, yes, we're gonna ramp out, we're gonna be a little bit stricter on, listen, I give you this, so you can't be doing this on the road. So it's a tit for tat. We are gonna work for you, we're gonna make this happen for you, but then work with us. Because yes, even me as a responsible driver, sometimes I get mad when I see them crisscrossing between the roads. You're driving, your car get hit, and they drive off. It is a situation right now, it's getting out of hand. So we can fight, and we are fighting to get a strip, but we need to have a temporary solution. When, for example, these boys find a place, an area where they do in a stunt after 5, 6 o'clock, for example, Guana Bay entrance, what happens? The police comes, stops it. They're trying to find certain areas where the traffic is not a lot, where they can do their stunting for a couple of hours. You will see a group of youth, cars standing, and they leaving the boys doing their things, but it gets stopped. So they are also trying to find solutions to do their art, to express themselves. So that's why we are here to also help them say, okay, let's take this to government, let's take this to parliament, because yes, like MP Bryson actually answered what I wanted to say, government is the executive, uitvoerende orgaan, but parliament is the controlerende orgaan. So if we are not getting far, our only option is to come here and say, we are doing this, and yes, we will bring the documentation, the proof, everything to, like MP Westcott said, to show where we are standing with the government, so that the parliament can assist us as the controlerende orgaan and ask, okay, where are we standing with this? Because this is becoming a problem, and also a safety issues for as well the boys, the riders, and the people commuting back and forth to work or doing their daily stuff. Also, the illegal drag racing that's being held because there's no place where people can drag. So they're gonna do illegal drag racing, and by not assisting in getting this finally done, the illegal drag racing is gonna continue. So, on the other hand, it is a tit for tat. Let's work on finding a solution for these boys and for the drags, racers and stuff, while we then enhance on, I don't like to use the word punishment, but enhance on being stricter in rules and regulations. And okay, you don't have a help, we'll take away your bike. So we need to give them something to expect something back in return. That is the insurance issue. I've been working lately with the French side association on insurance. Because here, if you hold events, the insurance only covers the people, but it doesn't cover the cars or the person or the bikes or the person, and that needs to change. And when it comes to the French side, their insurance is different, and they have requirements. So now we're busy to see what it is that the French side could help us with insurance-wise, or if it can cover a part of, let me say, if a Dutch organization is gonna have an event on the Dutch side, if we can be able to purchase insurance on the French side. So that is what we are working out where. I'm working with the president of the French Side Association, on getting more information on insurance, so as when we have events here, we can also have make sure our participants are insured and safe. I'm very happy you mentioned the safe roads, safe lives, because as you know, helmets are very important when it comes to the safety of these boys or men that do the biking. Many of them, a lot of people say, yeah, but if they can buy a bike, they should be able to buy a helmet, cannot even afford a helmet, and I think you know that, or cannot even afford the adequate attire, yes. So all these taken in consideration are things that we as foundation are working on to make sure that we can help these bikers, these riders, the youth that is interested in this sport. It is not something that we can say, okay, we're going to prohibit this, we're going to take it away, blam, fines and this, because the sport is growing and growing every day. The generation coming up more and more are interested in the sport of motor or drag racing. So I agree with Mr. Connor when we provide these boys with something, or these participants, these drag racers with something, it will lessen the stunts doing on the road. I cannot say it will go zero, but it will lessen it a lot. And by lessen it, we're already going into the right direction. So again, as I explained, yes, you were confused, Mrs. Heiligen, about why we are here together, because me and Mr. Richardson, we are more focused on bikes, because that is his area. Mr. Connor is on drag racing cars. And then after our presentation, there was a misunderstanding because they thought that we were going into talking about the drag racing also. And then we explained, no, we are more focused on bikes. And then we all came together and we decided, you know what? We all have one common goal, which is at the end, getting a drag strip for these children. And that's why we came together. And there are actually more organizations that couldn't be here today to show that we are a united front. We are here, we are coming together because we all have one common goal. And yes, we are here bij de controlerende orgaan to ask assistance, as I said, blessing, to help us achieve. And yes, we will get the information of where we stand. When it comes to the Cross Crew Clinic, yeah, he couldn't be here, but he would be more the right person to tell you on where it stands with the government. Like when I said, he already got approval from Minister of Romy for the event, where he's busy with the financing, with the safety. I think you probably saw an article where he was at the police station talking to the police and all of that about this event. So that's why I mentioned it's sad that he's not here, but it's understandable because he would then give you all the information of where he is with the minister, where he is with the police and all the ambulance, all the information you required. So I will tell him and enlighten him, and then if I receive the questions, I will let him answer you and give you all the documentation, the proof that you need, so you can understand where we are at when it comes to the approval. And yes, the remaining of the question, I will sit together with my colleagues here and then give an answer on that. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I see there are two others wishing to speak. However, can you also give an email address? Or we have it written here, so we'll be provided with email addresses where they are requesting if the members who pose questions can send them in writing if you so agree. MP Grisha Helga-Martin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just cast a point of order, just a clarification, because I'm sure Ms. Hedeveen can respond to this. It's a simple yes or no question. Ms. Hedeveen, through you, Mr. Chairman, stated just now that they are getting approval for an event. But Ms. Hedeveen also stated in writing that the drag strip is approved in writing on social media. So I would like to know, am I reading it correctly? Or is she saying approve for the event or approve for the drag strip? Because that's where we went a little unclear. And seemingly she said, COM already proved it. Already proved what? The event or the drag strip? And if it's the drag strip, who in COM did Ms. Hiravane speak to? And what is the status of such? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Question, Ms. Grisha. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. If you had read my point, it was stated under the comment of Mr. Christopher Emmanuel, and that he said that I need to go to COM. We were discussing about the event. So if you had read the statements before between me and Mr. Christopher Emmanuel, you would understand that we're talking about the event. Yes, we were not talking about the drag strip.
So you never met with the government pertaining to this trip? You decided to come to Parliament first, just for clarity, so I could understand the trajectory or your...
Yeah, I think
Yes?
the answer is
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And then now we close with MP Westcott Williams.
Yes, very briefly, Mr. Chairman, just for the sort of clarification, Mr. Connor, do you have over the years, maybe you can't answer it off the top of your head, but do you know if there is some type of request from your foundation in at Parliament, like over the years? And if not, I can put it in the questions as well, and then I get an answer that at some point in time, a proposal for the drag strip, whether such was put in at Parliament, is my question. But if it can't be answered right now, I'll add it to my questions.
Thank you. I think that would be a great suggestion if you can add that question, and then they can research within their archives what was sent to Parliament over the years. Members of the Justice Committee, the public viewing, and of course our guests, Mr. Connor, Ms. Richardson, and Ms. Hiravane, thank you very much for participating in this meeting. We will adjourn this meeting until further notice, where we will invite the associations once again to answer the questions. Thank you once again for your enlightening presentations today, and members of Parliament, thank you very much for your enthusiastic level of engagement. This meeting is adjourned.